This has been a highly requested video on my channel for the longest time, and I have been putting it off mainly because I have watched so many bookshelf tour videos, and honestly my bookshelf feels a little underwhelming compared to other booktubers. Like, other booktubers have full-on libraries in their homes. My bookshelf is not like that. But since this video has been highly requested on my channel, I decided to put my perfectionist insecurities to the side and just show you guys the progress that I've made with my bookcase. I'm still working on filling it. I have a lot of plans for it, but I'll just show you what I have so far. And once it's finished, I'll definitely give you guys an updated bookshelf tour. With that being said, let's just jump right into the video. I do want to mention that once I'm done showing you all the physical books that I own, I will also be sharing the books that are on my Kindle, since they're still technically part of my bookshelf. They're just on my Kindle. This is a quick overview of my bookshelves. I have the Billy bookcase from IKEA. It's the only one that I found that was horizontal. Like, I didn't want a vertical bookcase, and IKEA was the only place I was able to find a horizontal bookcase at a decent price. So this is how I have it pretty much decorated. I have these really cute little prints from the Senyo, and then I have this cute little faux plant from Target. I have a little candle burning also from Target. I have this cute little marble jewelry box. It can actually be used for absolutely anything. I have my little cat's toy in there, and then over here I just have a cute little bag that I've been using for the spring and summer. I just really love how it looks, so I put it on top of my bookcase. This is pretty much the overview of my bookcase. Let's start with this shelf, which is probably my favorite shelf out of my whole book shelf thingy-majiggy. I don't know why I'm so nervous right now, but I'm nervous filming this. The way I have my bookcase organized is pretty simple to me, but it might seem a little complicated to others. So first I have all my Colleen Hoover books, right? And then I have it by the alphabet. A subcategory under the alphabet would be by author. So if I have a few books that are by the same author, I'll group it together. Whichever book has a letter that comes first in the alphabet, I'll put it in that order. What am I trying to say? So I have Colleen Hoover, then I have books by the alphabet, and then a subcategory under the alphabet, I have author. You guys will see. So the first books that I have on my shelf are by the queen herself, Miss Colleen Hoover. I have Confess, which wasn't my favorite book, but I did cry a lot while reading this book. Then I have Heartbones, again, not my fave, but I still enjoyed reading it. The book that started my obsession with Colleen Hoover, It Ends With Us. This book broke my heart into a million pieces, and my heart has still not fully recovered. Most of us read It Ends With Us because of TikTok, and a lot of us discovered Colleen Hoover because of this book, but I'm interested to see if anyone else picked up a different book by Colleen Hoover, or if you knew about Colleen Hoover before TikTok. Comment down below. Then I have Layla. I absolutely loved this book. It's like a paranormal romance book. It's very different from her other books, and I enjoyed it so much. I didn't really like the main character all that much, but that didn't take away from the fact that I loved the story, so highly recommend. November 9. This was one of the first books that I read from Colleen Hoover. Not my favorite. I felt like the plot was a little bit too unrealistic for my liking. Reminders of Him, one of my more recent reads and one of Colleen Hoover's more recent releases. Absolutely love this book. It destroyed me as well. Cried so much, but it was so good. I also have her Slammed series. So Slammed, which is the first book in the series, was actually her first book that she ever published. And I have Slammed, Point of Retreat, which is the second book in the series, and then This Girl, which is the third book in the series. And honestly, I absolutely love this series. I feel like not a lot of people talk about it, and I'm not really sure why, because I fell in love with it. My favorite is definitely the first book. I actually wish Colleen Hoover would write more series. I feel like I would really enjoy that. Then I have Ugly Love, 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 love this book. And then another 5-star read was Verity. Absolutely love this book. Again, this book is very different from her other romance books, but still a 10 out of 10 for me. And then I have Without Merit. This was a recent purchase of mine. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard so many good things about it, so I am pretty excited to start it soon. Moving on to the books that I have next to Miss Coho, I have A Magical New Year Christmas by Anita Hughes. I am horrible with last names, so if I mispronounce authors' names, I am so sorry. I mean no disrespect. There's like 2 languages in my head, English and Spanish, so sometimes I read authors' names in Spanish when they're not meant to be read in Spanish and vice versa, so just bear with me, okay? It's hard being bilingual. But this is a book that got me back into reading. I read it last year, I believe in November, and I absolutely fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the characters, and this is actually the first romance book that I have ever read. Actually, no, I read 50 Shades of Grey and Twilight. But this is the book that really got me into romance novels, because prior to this book, I really wasn't a fan of romance novels, or at least I thought I wasn't a fan. I thought that romance novels were corny. I was ignorant. I didn't really know what I was talking about. I haven't seen anyone talk about this book, and I don't know why. It's such a good book. Again, 10 out of 10 for me. Right next to A Magical New Year Christmas, I have A Proposal They Can't Refuse by Natalie Ganya. I recently read this during a 7-day reading challenge, so you guys will hear my thoughts about this book very soon. Right next to that one, I have A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Greek mythology retelling type book. I absolutely love the cover. I think the cover is absolutely gorgeous, but the story itself wasn't my fave. Then we have Beautiful Disaster and Walk in Disaster by Jamie McGuire. As you guys can see, this is what I mean by authors being a subcategory of the alphabetized bookshelf, because it goes Beautiful Disaster obviously starts with a B, Walk in Disaster obviously starts with the W, but since they're from the same author and they're actually part of the same series, I decided to keep them right next to one another. I read Beautiful Disaster. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Walk in Disaster is the second book in the series. It's strictly from the point of view of the male character. I'm on page 83. I just haven't finished it. I DNF'd it. And then we have one of my favorite books of all time, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. I absolutely love this book. I bought it years ago. The movie is probably one of my favorite movies, if not my most favorite movie of all time. Audrey Hepburn. Do I need to say more? Whenever I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling down, or I just need a good comfort movie to watch that's going to make me feel so good, I watch Breakfast at Tiffany's. Right next to Breakfast at Tiffany's, we have Miss Emily Henry. I really love her covers and the bright colors that she uses. I think they look so cute together. I have Reach Read, which I recently read again during a 7-day reading challenge. I'm not going to tell you my thoughts on it until that video comes out, which it should come out after this video, but I have some thoughts on this book. And then I have People With Me on Vacation. Haven't read this one yet. It's on my TBR for July, so I will get to it this month, hopefully. And then we have Book Lovers. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I know that a lot of people didn't enjoy this book, but I literally loved it so much. The final 9 books on the first shelf are Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I haven't read it yet, but this is also on my July TBR, so I will get to it eventually. Then we have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I have started reading this book, but I am not obsessed with it yet. I pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. I haven't really felt the need to read it in one sitting or to continue reading it in one sitting. Next, we have 2 books from Tessa Bailey. I have It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker. If you're looking for summer books to read by the pool or at the beach, these are the books for those days. Highly recommend. These books made me fall in love with Tessa Bailey's writing, and I'm definitely going to be picking up more of her books to add to my collection. And then I have Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. Haven't read this book. It's on my TBR. I need to read it. Now for Christina Lauren. If you are unfamiliar with Christina Lauren, they are basically 2 best friends who decided to write books together. I just love the idea of 2 friends writing books books together. I love their writing. So I have 3 of their books. The Unhoneymooners. This book is one of my favorite books of all time as well. Absolutely love. And then we have Love in Other Words. Not my fave book. I found it kind of flat, to be honest. I think it's mainly because I'm not a huge fan of childhood friends to lovers type of books. I don't know. I just feel like they are typically dragged out way too long. And this book definitely dragged on for me. So not my fave, but I love the cover. I think the cover is absolutely stunning. And the final book that I have from them is The Soulmate Equation. Absolutely love this book. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Highly, highly recommend. I don't see a lot of people talking about this book, but I really enjoyed it. And then the final book on the first shelf is Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. Really enjoyed this book. It's a cute little rom-com, another great little summer read. Now we have the second shelf. If you haven't noticed, these 2 shelves are actually all romance books, and then I switched genres up with the next couple shelves, as you guys will see in just a moment. But the first couple books on this shelf are Neon Gods by Katie Robert. Not my favorite book, but it was still a decent read. It was just too spicy and not enough plot. Then we have The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I also read this during the 7-day reading challenge that will be up soon, and I'll share my thoughts then. Then we have Persuasion by Jane Austen. I started reading it, haven't finished it. I literally just read like the first 5 pages and I need to get back into it. Then we have Priest. I haven't read this yet. On Christmas Avenue. This is another Christmas romance type of book. I actually bought this after I read A Magical New Year Christmas. Not my fave romance novel, if I'm being honest, but it was still a cute little read. Right next to those books, I have the Off Campus series. Absolutely love this series. These are all by Elle Kennedy. The first book in the series is The Deal, and this is the best book in the series. Try to change my mind. Garrett is just a 10 out of 10. Love his character. Then I have The Mistake, The Score, The Goal, which is probably my least favorite in the whole series, if I'm being honest. And then I have The Legacy, and it's actually about all 4 couples. It ties all the books together and you kind of catch up with all the main characters, I think 3 or 4 years after graduation. It's not a bad book. I don't really think you need to read it, but I wanted the complete off-campus collection, so I bought it and I read it. Next up, we have The Axe Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Again, this is another book that I read during my 7-day reading challenge, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it yet. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have not read this yet, mainly because I'm intimidated by the size of this book. I will get to it eventually. Let me know if you want a reading vlog featuring this book, and I could definitely film it. Maybe that will motivate me to actually read the book. Then we have 2 books by Sally Thorne. I have The Hating Game and Second First Impression. So I read Hating Game first. I thought it was a pretty good book, not a 5-star read for me. And then Second First Impressions is another book that I read during the 7-day reading challenge. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but you know, I don't want to spoil that video for you guys, so apologies in advance. Next, we have The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and I love the cover. Although I didn't really enjoy the plot all that much, I do think it's a pretty unique read. I just didn't like the delivery of the story, if that makes sense. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. You guys already know, one of my favorite books. If you haven't read this book, like, are you living under a rock? What are you doing? Go read this book. Next up, we have 3 books by Helen Huang. They're actually part of a series. So the first book in the series is The Kiss Quilton. This was a 5-star read for me. Absolutely loved it. Then we have The Bride Test. Again, I read this during my 7-day reading challenge, so you guys will find out soon what I think about it. The Heart Principle is the 3rd book in the series. I have not read it yet. Right next to that series, we have the Selection series. I have The Selection, The Elite, and then I have The One. All of these are by Kiara Cass. This definitely was more of a guilty pleasure for me. Not the best books of all time, but highly addicting. The final 3 books on this shelf are The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I feel like this book gets a lot of hate. I don't know why. I don't understand it. It is kind of slow in the beginning, but I loved it regardless. Aaron Blackford has my heart. Absolutely love him. If we could get a book with his POV, I'd be obsessed. We need that book. Then we have The Worst Best Man. This is a cute little rom-com. It's by Mia Sosa. This is a book that I don't really see a lot of people talking about, but I still think it's a really cute read, and I highly recommend if you want like a light-hearted rom-com to just make your soul feel good. That's the book for that. Then I have Romeo and Juliet. I bought this back in college, I'm pretty sure. Obviously I read Romeo and Juliet in high school, but I wanted to reread it again in college. I don't know why, so I bought it and then I never opened the book. One day I will. So this is the final shelf out of the first bookshelf that I have. All I have is a cute little candle that I got from Target, a little book that my husband gifted me or I gifted him. I don't know. When you're with someone for years, you kind of forget who gifted who what. I just have it as a little decor piece. And then right in the middle, I have the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. I have the first 4 books in the series. I haven't decided if I want to read the 5th book yet. My plans for this shelf is actually going to be all fantasy. Once I finish this series, I want to purchase the Thorn of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and also I forget what the series is called. It's another fantasy read. I think it starts with The Cruel Prince, and I've heard so many great things about that. So this whole shelf will be for fantasy books. But since I don't have those yet, this is what this shelf looks like. All right, let's move on to the second bookcase, because these are actually separate. It's not attached, which I actually preferred it to be that way. That way I could buy them separately and keep adding to my home library. On this shelf, I have all of my thrillers. So I have 1984, which I don't really think it's a thriller, but I didn't know where else to put it, so I put it on this shelf. This is by George Orwell. Next up, we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Not my fave book, to be honest. I almost didn't continue the series, except so many of you kept telling me to read the second book, and I did. Good Girl, Bad Blood. Absolutely loved this book, and I'm so glad you guys pushed me to continue reading the series. I feel like this book is way better than the first, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, so I don't understand that. Next up, we have Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. I actually read this during college, and I still have it after all this time. It's a very good book. It's just been years since I read it, and I think there's a movie based on this book. It's a true story, by the way. Next, we have books that I am not a huge fan of, but I regretfully own. Look What You Made Me Do by Elaine Murphy. This book was super underwhelming. The plot had so much potential and it failed to deliver. Then we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. You guys already know how I feel about this book. Absolutely hate it. It pains me that I own it, but I don't want to throw it out because that would just be wasteful. The next 3 books that I have are Shatter Me. I read this during a 24-hour reading vlog not too long ago, about 2 weeks ago. I really enjoyed this book and I look forward to picking up the other books in the series. Then we have 7 Dirty Secrets. Again, this was a very underwhelming book. There was so much potential with the plot and it just didn't deliver, so definitely not a fave. And then we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Severa. I've owned this book for a couple months now and I just haven't read it yet. It's been on my TBR for a long time. Don't know when I'm going to read it. Next up, we have The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. This is actually by J.K. Rowling. It's actually part of a series. It's the first book in a long series, I believe, but I just haven't felt the need to read the other books because this one was so slow. I don't know if the other books are a lot more fast-paced, but I just haven't cared or been interested enough to pick them up. Then we have The Silent Patient by Alex. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his last name. This one I recently read, absolutely loved. It threw me in for such a twist. I did not see the ending coming at all. If you're looking for a good thriller, this is the book, trust me. Then we have The Stowaway by James Murray and Darren Wehrmouth. I didn't really like this book mainly because it involved a child killer and there was no warning on how graphic this book was going to be. I'm not one to squirm away from gore or serial killers or anything like that, but when it comes to children, I just can't not read about them in gruesome ways. So this one was not a good book for me. Didn't really enjoy it. Then we have We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book gets so much hate, but I actually enjoyed it immensely. And I think it's a good little summer book. Then we have Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I have not read this book yet. I recently purchased it. It's on my TBR for July. There's a movie coming out very soon on this book. I need to hurry up and read it so I can go watch the movie. And then right in the middle, we have One of Us Is Lying and One of Us Is Next by Karen McManus. I read One of Us Is Lying, absolutely loved it. One of Us Is Next is the second book in the series, and I believe she's currently writing the third book. Haven't read this one yet, but I want to. And then I lied. This shelf doesn't only contain thrillers, it also contains some of my self-help books that I've purchased over the years. Honestly, it's been a while since I've read these books, so I am not even going to tell you guys my ratings or tell you what they're about, because some of them I don't even remember, and some of the titles pretty much explain what the book is about, so you guys will get the gist. First up, we have Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I actually purchased this book last year. I did not finish it. It's pretty dense. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right word, but it's pretty boring. I don't know how else to put it. Most of the information I feel like I already know. Then we have Be a Millionaire Next Year by Michael R. Berg. This is actually my husband's book. I have not read it. Understanding Stocks by Michael Sincere. Again, my husband's book. I think I actually started that one. Then we have two philosophy books. We actually have a couple philosophy books. They actually are from my college days, but I have The Trial and Death of Socrates by Plato, Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals by Immanuel Kant, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, Advice Not Giving by Mark Epstein, The Bates Method for Better Eyesight Without Glasses. This is my husband's book. An Aristotle book. Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart by Mark Epstein. This book, I kid you not, saved my life. I read it like back in 2015, 2016 when I was in a really dark time of my life. It had so much valuable information. Absolutely love this book. I want to reread it again, not because I'm in a dark place or anything, but because I just want to see if it still has relevant information. This was actually a gift from a former coworker. Funny enough, she gave me this book when I got married, and it's The Happiest Baby on the Block by Harvey Karp. Haven't read it yet, obviously, because I don't have any kids and I'm not pregnant. I guess I will read it once that day comes. There's only one book on the second shelf of this bookcase, and it's The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I picked this up a few months ago. My husband actually read it a few years ago, enjoyed it, and I want to read it. I just haven't had the time, and it's also very thick. I feel like this is going to be a book that I write in and highlight in excessively, and then I just have a cute little candle on top of it. This is my bottom shelf, and these are basically all of my true crime books. Fun fact, I studied psychology in college, and my plans during that time was once I graduated undergrad, I wanted to go to grad school to become a forensic psychologist. At that time, I strongly believed that I wanted to work with serial killers and interview them, figure out why they did the things they did. I then realized that I didn't want that as a career, but during that time, I read a lot of books on serial killers and on profiling. I got rid of a good amount, but I kept some of the books that I thought that I would still enjoy reading in the future. I'm going to quickly go through these because it's been a minute since I've read them, but I have Manhunters by Colin Wilson, Profiles in Murder by, who is this by? Russell Vorhagel. An FBI legend dissects killers and their crimes. Waking Up from War by Joseph Barrow. This is not a serial killer book. It's a book on soldiers and the PTSD that they deal with when they come home from war. Really good book. Then I have Why We Love Serial Killers by Scott Bond. Serial Killers, The Method and Madness of Monsters by Peter Wronski. Asking for It by Kate Harding. Then I have Psychopaths Up Close and Personal by Christopher Barry D. This is basically inside the minds of sociopaths, serial killers, and deranged murderers. Serial Killers Up Close and Personal, inside the world of torturers, psychopaths, and mass murderers. I did not realize that these were by the same author. Wow, it took me just now, after years of owning those books, to realize that. Or maybe I did realize that back then. Then we have The Man and the Monster by Martha Elliott. This is the book on a serial killer who was active between 1981 and 1984. The Lucifer Effect is by Philip Zimbardo. Ricardo, who was the creator of the highly controversial Stanford Prison Experiment. These are the books that I have in the middle of the bookshelf. I have True Crime by Martin Fido and David Southwell. This is basically about the infamous villains of modern history and their crimes. We have Profiling: The Psychology of Catching Killers. I absolutely loved this book. I remember reading it religiously. And then we have a couple life books, or I guess magazines. I don't know what you would call these, but my mom used to buy me these all the time. The Greatest Unsolved Mysteries of All Time, The Most Notorious Crimes in Road History, one on the Titanic, one on serial killers, another one on the most notorious crimes in American history. The final 4 books that I have on my bookshelf are Get You Girl by Phil Hammond and Sandy Hammond, The Science of Evil, On Empathy and the Origins of Cruelty by Simon Baron Cohen. Back then I highlighted books, can you guys tell? I was so serious about learning and memorizing everything that I read regarding psychology that I would write, highlight, take notes on every book that I read. I think that's when I lost my love for reading, because I was reading so much for school or for the career I thought I wanted that I lost the love of reading, if that makes sense. And then I have I Monster: Serial Killers in Their Own Chilling Words. These are just a bunch of different interviews of serial killers, and it's by Tom Philbin. And then the last true crime book I have is The Cases That Haunt Us by John Douglas. John Douglas was one of the first FBI profilers. I also remember being obsessed with him and his career. So it's so funny for me to look at these books now and think of those years when I was obsessed with serial killers and true crime, and now I'm not obsessed with true crime. It's like I'll still read it, but I don't really seek those books out as much. It's really weird how your interest changes through the years and as you mature. But those are all the physical books that I have on my bookshelf. I do have a third bookshelf which is pretty much empty aside from one crystal book. I just want to keep it empty until I have enough books to fill the shelf up, so it's going to stay empty for a bit. Now I want to share with you guys all the books that I have on my Kindle. I have the Kindle app for iPhone. I don't have an actual Kindle. I don't really see the need for a Kindle, but if you have a Kindle and you think it's better than just reading it on an iPhone or iPad, let me know in the comments below and I might consider getting one. I just feel like I don't read ebooks enough for me to get a Kindle, and why get a Kindle if I can just read on my phone? You know, it's one less thing to carry. But that's just my opinion. So I don't have a ton of books on here, but I'll show you guys the books that I do have. So the first book is the International Handbook of Work and Health Psychology. That was for college. I still have it. The Note Me Athlete Cookbook. Then right next to that, I have Anna May's Guide to Childbirth. I'm not pregnant, but really interested in natural childbirth. And anytime I would do research on natural childbirths, that book would pop up a lot. I started reading it like months ago, and then I just never finished reading it. I definitely want to read it, but I think I'm saving it for when I'm actually pregnant and I have to worry about giving birth to a child. And then I have the 50 Shades of Grey series told by Christian Grey's point of view. So I have Darker and Freed. I believe I have the first book, which is called Grey, on my iBook. Is that what it's called? The reading app for iPhone. I downloaded it years and years ago. I do want the physical copies, I will say. I also think that I have the complete Twilight series in the iBook app. Does anyone use the Apple reading app anymore? Is it still around? I have no idea. And then next to Darker, I have The Sweetest Oblivion. And that was actually a book that was in my tier ranking video that I did a few weeks ago, where I tier ranked popular TikTok books. That book actually came up. When I downloaded it, I didn't even know it was a popular TikTok book. I just downloaded it because it sounded like it would be interesting. I literally have not read anything. I'm on chapter 1, page 1. I will read it eventually. And then I recently downloaded The Cellar, which is by Natasha Preston. I downloaded both The Sweetest Oblivion and The Cellar because they were free. They were included in my Prime membership. That's one thing I like about the Kindle app, is that through your Prime membership, you get a limited amount of free books that you're able to read, and those two were part of Prime reading, so I didn't have to pay for them. I was able to download them for free. I think that's pretty cool and I really enjoy that. And then I have the complete Detective Josie Quinn series by Lisa Reagan. All 13 books. I think I have the 14th book as well. I just haven't read it. If you didn't know, the Josie Quinn series is one of my favorite detective series. It is so addicting and it's so freaking good. If you're into like murder mysteries, detective types of books, definitely check out Detective Josie Quinn series by Lisa Reagan. You won't regret it. I have Hold Still, which is also by Lisa Reagan. That's another Prime reading book. I never really started it, if I'm being honest. And then the last book that I have on here is A Game of Fate by Scarlett St. Clair, another Prime reading book. It's actually part of the series A Touch of Darkness, but it's told from Hades' perspective versus this one is solely Persephone's perspective. I think I read just a couple chapters and then DNF'd it, if I'm being honest. I feel like I talked for way too long. Hopefully this video isn't a million years long. And yeah, that is pretty much it for today's video. Let me know in the comments below, what is your all-time favorite book? I would love to know. Maybe I read it, maybe I will read it in the future, you never know. And I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I would love to have you a part of my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.